Captain Elias Thorne gripped the console as the alert klaxon screamed through the bridge of the UNS Vanguard. Red lights pulsed across the panels, casting jagged shadows on the faces of his crew. "Evasive maneuvers now," he barked, his voice cutting through the din like a laser. Lieutenant Maria Reyes, his tactical officer, slammed her fingers onto the controls, but the ship shuddered violently, inertial dampeners whining in protest. The view screen flickered, revealing the anomaly, a swirling vortex of iridescent gas that had appeared from nowhere in the uncharted sector. The Council's briefing had called it a low-threat nebula remnant, a relic from some ancient stellar event safe for scouting. Elias's jaw tightened. He'd trusted that intel, pushed the mission forward despite the unease gnawing at his gut. Now the Vanguard was caught in its pull, engines straining against an invisible tide. "Status, Reyes?" Elias demanded, leaning forward. His hands, calloused from years of manual overrides on frontier haulers, itched to take the helm himself. "Gravity shear's increasing, Captain. Shields at 60% and dropping. It's not just gas. Sensors are picking up structures, moving ones." Her dark eyes narrowed at the readouts, brow furrowed in concentration. Reyes was the steady one, always calculating odds with a cool precision that balanced Elias's bold instincts. Ensign Kai Novak, the young engineer at the auxiliary station, spun in his chair. "Sir, the hull's integrity is holding, but if we don't break free soon, it'll crumple us like foil." "Power diversion to thrusters?" Elias nodded sharply. "Do it. And hail the away team on the surface probe. There are eyes down there." The probe had been deployed hours ago to the nearby rogue planetoid, a dusty rock the Council deemed irrelevant. But if this nebula was hiding teeth, that rock might be their only lifeline. The ship groaned as Kai rerouted energy, lights dimming to emergency levels. Elias felt the deck tilt beneath him, the vortex's grip tightening like a vice. Outside, tendrils of the gas cloud writhed, probing the shields with electric fury. He glanced at the comms panel. No response from the away team. Dr. Lena Voss, their xenobiologist, led that group. Her cautious reports had been the mission's cautious heartbeat until now. "Captain, incoming transmission," Reyes announced, her voice taut. The screen split, showing Lena's face pale and streaked with regolith dust from the planetoid's surface. Behind her, the barren landscape stretched under a starless sky, jagged craters like open wounds. "Elias, it's worse than we thought," Lena said, urgency cracking her usual measured tone. She was the thinker, the one who pieced together puzzles from fragments, but fear edged her words now. "The anomaly isn't natural. Scans show artificial signatures, old but active. And something's stirring on this rock. We need extraction yesterday." Before Elias could respond, the ship lurched again, a metallic screech echoing from below decks. Kai cursed under his breath. "Breach in engineering, sealing it off, but we're losing pressure." Elias's mind raced, piecing the fragments. Council's low-threat assessment, the sudden vortex, Lena's warning. This wasn't a remnant. It was a trap or a sentinel left by who knew what long-extinct race, and they were flying blind into its jaws. "Reyes, plot a slingshot trajectory around the planetoid. Use its gravity to whip us out. Kai, reinforce the forward bays. We're picking up our people and punching through." The crew moved like a well-oiled machine, but doubt flickered in Elias's chest. One wrong vector and the Vanguard would join whatever ghosts haunted this void. As the planetoid loomed larger on the screen, a shadow detached from its horizon, sleek, angular, uncoiling like a predator roused from slumber. Elias gripped the armrests of his command chair, the ship's hum vibrating through the deck like a warning growl. The shadow on the view screen sharpened into form, a vessel, alien and lethal, its hull a mosaic of jagged spines that caught the starlight in fractured glints. It wasn't charging. It was angling, matching their vector with eerie precision, as if it had been waiting. "Contact bearing 047, closing fast," Reyes called from navigation, her fingers dancing over the console. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her voice stayed level, clipped. "They're matching our slingshot. No hails, no emissions we can detect." Kai spun from his engineering station, eyes wide under the flicker of diagnostic readouts. "Forward bays reinforced, Captain." "But if they board, they won't," Elias cut in, forcing steel into his tone. He wasn't about to let panic ripple through the bridge. Lena, at tactical, already had her hands buried in the weapons grid, her cautious nature channeled into silent fury. She was the one who'd first spotted the anomaly, her warnings dismissed by the Council's endless briefings on low-threat remnants. Now, those words tasted like ash. "Evade pattern Delta," Elias ordered. "Reyes, thread us through the debris field. Use the rocks as cover, make them chase." The Vanguard shuddered as thrusters fired, banking hard toward the planetoid's outer ring of shattered asteroids. Alarms blared softly in the background, a chorus of yellow warnings for structural stress. Elias felt the G-forces press him back, his mind flashing to the crew below decks. The engineers sealing the breach, the medics prepping for pickup. They were down there because of his call, his gut over the Council's data. On screen, the alien ship mirrored them effortlessly, slicing through the debris like a knife through silk. No weapons fire yet, but proximity alerts spiked. Lena's console chimed. "They're scanning us. Deep probe, hull integrity, power cores. They're learning our weaknesses." "Jam it," Elias snapped. "Full spectrum." She nodded, her witty edge surfacing in a grim mutter. "Jamming. But if this thing's as old as it looks, it might not care about our toys." The first asteroid loomed, a hulking gray boulder tumbling lazily. Reyes nudged the ship closer, grazing its edge just enough to kick up a spray of micrometeorites. Elias watched the alien vessel hesitate. Or was that an illusion? Before it adjusted, firing a pulse that vaporized a chunk of rock ahead of them. The shockwave buffeted the Vanguard, lights dimming for a heartbeat. "Lost auxiliary power to Bay 3, Kai reported, his brave facade cracking as he patched in redundancies. "We're down to 80% on the slingshot burn. If we don't accelerate soon, we will." Elias leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. The pickup team was minutes out, their shuttle blinking like a firefly in the void. Abandon them? Not an option. But this hunter was hurting them, forcing the tight loop around the planetoid. One mistake, and they'd smear across its gravity well. Lena's fingers flew faster. "Incoming vector change, they're flanking. Recommend hard burn to break orbit." Reyes glanced back, her cautious streak showing in the hesitation. "That'll slingshot us away from the shuttle. We leave them behind." Elias's jaw tightened. The shadow vessel uncoiled another tendril from its side. Not a weapon, but a grapnel lancing toward the debris. It latched onto a fragment, hurling it straight at the Vanguard's path. Collision warning screamed. "Evasive," Elias barked. Reyes yanked the controls, the ship rolling sharply. The asteroid fragment whistled past, close enough that Elias swore he heard the hull groan. Sparks erupted from a panel near Kai, who dove to smother them with an extinguisher. "Damage minimal," Kai gasped, waving smoke away. "But we're venting atmosphere in the lower decks. Slowly." The alien ship closed the gap, its spines glowing faintly now, charging for a strike. Elias's mind raced. Council said low threat, but this was no relic. It was alive, adaptive, and it had them in its sights. The shuttle's signal pulsed urgently. The team was clear of the surface, but exposed. "Alter the slingshot," Elias said, the idea crystallizing. "Human grit, not tech miracles." Reyes, plot a double loop. Use the planetoid's moonlet for a gravity assist. "It'll cost fuel, but it'll buy us separation." Her eyes narrowed, calculating. "Risky. The moonlets in decay orbit could shear us apart." "Do it." "Lena, target that grapnel arm." "Disrupt their momentum." Lena's response was a fierce grin, the first real spark of camaraderie amid the chaos. "With pleasure." As the Vanguard dove into the tighter arc, the alien predator surged after, its form blotting the stars. Elias felt the ship's frame protest, but they held. For now. The cost was mounting, pressure dropping, crew exposed. But surrender wasn't in their blood. Not out here. The moonlet swelled on the view screen, a pitted rogue drawing them in like a siren's call. The Vanguard shuddered as the moonlet's gravity snagged its hull, pulling them into a slingshot arc that bent the stars into streaks. Elias gripped the command rail, his knuckles white against the worn metal, watching the alien craft mirror their desperate maneuver. It was bigger up close, a biomechanical horror with tendrils writhing like living cables, closing the gap despite the fuel burn eating their reserves. "Reyes, tighten that loop. Give us another 10 degrees. Elias barked, his voice cutting through the alarm klaxons. She didn't look up from her console, fingers dancing over the thruster controls. "Pushing it, Cap. Structural integrity at 70%. One more shear and we're venting atmo." Lena's targeting reticule locked onto the grapnel arm, a massive barbed appendage uncoiling from the predator's underbelly. She fired a burst from the plasma lance, the recoil vibrating through the deck. The shot grazed the tendril, sparking against its armored hide, but it whipped back undeterred, lashing out like a serpent striking prey. Missed the joint, Lena growled, adjusting her aim. It's adapting, shifting mass to counter. Elias scanned the tactical display. The moonlet was decaying, all right. Its orbit a slow spiral toward the gas giant below. If they timed it wrong, they'd be crushed in the debris field or smeared across the planet's atmosphere. But the alien was committed now, its engines flaring with an eerie blue pulse that outpaced their own. Human tech against whatever xeno nightmare this was. No contest on paper, but they weren't going down without teeth. Divert power from life support, he ordered. Route it to forward shields. Lena, prep the decoy drone, make it look like our core signature. Reyes shot him a glance, her dark eyes sharp with doubt. That'll drop cabin pressure. We'll be sucking vacuum in minutes if this flops. Better than letting that thing reel us in. Elias met her stare, steady. He'd pulled crews through worse. Pirate ambushes in the belt, reactor meltdowns on deep halls. Grit wasn't a sim. It was what kept you breathing when the odds laughed. She nodded, flipping the switches. Alarms wailed louder as air recyclers whined to a halt, the bridge growing chill. Lena launched the drone, a fist-sized probe streaking out on microthrusters, broadcasting a false heat bloom and EM signature. It zipped toward the moonlet's far side, drawing the predator's attention. The alien veered, its grapnel snapping toward the decoy. For a heartbeat, the view screen cleared, the beast overshooting, tendrils flailing at empty space. Gotcha, Lena whispered, her grin feral as she lined up the real shot. But the moonlet chose that moment to fragment. A micrometeor storm, hidden in its shadow, peppered the Vanguard's flank. Hull plates buckled with a deafening groan and red lights flooded the bridge. Breach in engineering. Impact! Reyes yelled, wrestling the controls as the ship yawed. We're losing spin, correcting now. Elias braced as inertial dampers lagged, the world tilting. The alien recovered fast, looping back with renewed hunger, its form silhouetted against the gas giant's swirling storms. The decoy had bought seconds, not salvation. Pressure gauges plummeted. Frost rhymed the bulkheads. Lena, fire everything, buy us time to seal that breach. She unleashed the broadsides, railguns hammering kinetic slugs into the Predator's prow. One connected, crumpling a sensor array in a spray of debris, but the beast pressed on undaunted. Its grapnel extended again, this time aimed true. Engineering's comm crackled. Cap, it's bad, plasma conduits ruptured. We patch this or we cook. Elias's mind raced. The moonlet's decay orbit, they could use it. Ride the fragments like a shield. Turn the hunter's mass against itself. Risky as hell, but sitting targets died first. Reyes plot an evasion through the debris wake. Shallow angle, let the rocks do the hitting. Her response was immediate, a spark of that pilot's fire. On it, strap in. This'll rattle your teeth. As the Vanguard dove into the glittering storm of moonlit shards, Elias felt the cold seep deeper, his breath fogging. The crew's eyes met his, trust forged in the void unbreakable. They weren't prey, not yet. The Vanguard shuddered as the first shard slammed into its hull. A glancing blow that sent vibrations racing through the deck. Elias gripped the armrests, his knuckles whitening while alarms wailed in staccato bursts. Reyes's hands danced over the controls, coaxing the ship through the narrowing gap between tumbling rocks, each one a jagged remnant of the moonlet's demise, glinting like broken teeth in the starlight. Impact in 10, Reyes called, her voice steady but edged with grit. That grapnel's still tracking. It's adapting. Kow's is smarter than the last one. Elias nodded, eyes fixed on the view screen where the beast's silhouette loomed. A hulking shadow weaving through the debris with unnatural grace. Its tendrils flexed, probing the chaos, and he could almost feel the thing's impatience. A predator denied its kill. Keep us tight to the wake. Let the fragments clip it. We've got the mass on our side. From the engineering station, Kai's voice cut in, laced with urgency. Conduits holding for now. But if we take another hit like that, the plasma's gonna vent straight into the core. We're one bad bounce from meltdown. The ship lurched sideways, a larger boulder shearing off a chunk of outer plating with a screech that echoed in Elias's bones. Sparks erupted from a console nearby, and he smelled the acrid bite of overheating circuits. Kai, the burly mechanic, wedged into his jump seat, cursed under his breath and patched a flickering readout. Shields at 40%. This debris field's turning into a grinder. Reyes banked hard, threading the needle between two colliding fragments that exploded in a spray of dust and ice. The beast was closing, its grapnel whipping out like a serpent's strike, latching onto a passing rock and hurling it aside. The improvised missile hurtled toward them, too fast to evade fully. Elias braced as it grazed the port wing, the impact jolting everyone forward. Lights flickered, and for a heartbeat, gravity stuttered, leaving stomachs in free fall. "Direct hit on the maneuvering thrusters," Kai shouted, already unstrapping to dive under a panel. "We're listing. Corrections sluggish." Elias's plan had been sharp in the moment. Use the moonlet's decay to mask their escape, turn the hunter's bulk against the storm. But the beast wasn't mindless. It anticipated, mirroring their path with eerie precision. A tendril snagged another shard, flinging it squarely at the vanguard's flank. The collision rang like a death knell, buckling armor and shearing a sensor array clean off. Kai's comm erupted in static. "Cap, we've got a breach in Section 3, hull integrity dropping. If that thing grapples us now, we're done." Sweat beaded on Elias's forehead, the cold of the void forgotten in the heat of the cabin. The debris wake was supposed to be their shield, but it was backfiring, accelerating the beast's pursuit by clearing its own path. Reyes fought the controls, her jaw set, but the ship's response lagged, yawing unpredictably. "I can't shake it. It's using the rocks like stepping stones." Kai yanked open a conduit, sparks flying as he jury-rigged a bypass. "Give me 30 seconds, rerouting power to stabilizers." But if it latches on... Elias scanned the readouts, mind churning. The beast was adapting faster than they'd gamed out, its form shifting subtly on the screen, elongating, streamlining for the chaos. No time for retreat. The Council's low threat assessment mocked him now, their autopsy waiting if they failed. Reyes reverse thrust on the starboard side. Spin us into the densest cluster. Make it chase through the meat of it. Her eyes met his in the reflection of the console. A flicker of doubt swallowed by resolve. "That'll tear us apart. Better torn than taken. Do it." The ship groaned as Reyes executed, thrusters firing in opposition. They spiraled into a thickening veil of shards, the view screen fracturing with impacts. Ping, crack, thunder. The beast followed, relentless, but a massive boulder clipped its flank, shearing off a tendril in a burst of ethereal fluid that trailed like comet smoke. For the first time, Elias saw it falter, recoiling as secondary explosions rippled across its hide. "Got it," Kai yelled, slamming the panel shut. Stabilizers hummed back to life, steadying their wild rotation. But the cost mounted. Red warnings bloomed across the boards, life support straining, the air growing thick with the tang of scorched metal. The beast regrouped, its remaining grapnel arming with a predatory gleam, and Elias knew they'd bought seconds, not salvation. In the void's unyielding grip, survival demanded more than grit. It demanded a break they'd have to force. Elias gripped the console edge as the ship lurched, the beast's grapnel whipping toward them like a harpoon from the abyss. Kai's hands flew across the auxiliary controls, rerouting power from non-essentials. Lights dimmed to a sullen red glow, the hum of recyclers fading to a whisper. "Reroute complete," he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. "Engines at 60%. We punch out now or kiss the debris field goodbye." The creature's form twisted in the starfield beyond the viewport, a colossal silhouette of jagged chitin and pulsing voids, its severed tendril leaking iridescent haze that caught the distant sun like shattered glass. Elias's mind raced, piecing together fragments from the Council's briefing. Low-threat xenomorph, non-sentient scavenger. Lies, all of it. This thing hunted with intent, adapting faster than their simulations predicted. He jabbed the comms. "Lena, status on the breach seals?" "We're venting atmosphere in Bay 3. Her voice crackled back, sharp with strain. "Sealed, but it's temporary. That arm of yours clipped the hull, microfractures everywhere. One more hit and we're space confetti." Lena Voss, the cautious one, always the voice of measured risk, now barking orders to the auto-repair drones like a drill sergeant. Elias could picture her in the engineering crawl space, grease-streaked face lit by emergency strips, her wiry frame braced against the vibrations. The grapnel struck home with a shudder that rattled Elias's teeth, locking onto the ventral fin. Alarms wailed, a cacophony of red lights painting the bridge in bloody hues. Kai cursed, yanking levers to fire retros. The ship groaned, engines flaring blue against the black, but the beast reeled them in inexorably, its maw, a vortex of grinding mandibles, yawning wider on the scopes. "It's got us," Kai said, his usual wit edged with grit. "Like a fish on a line." Ideas, boss. Elias scanned the readouts, heart pounding in sync with the failing stabilizers. Resource shortage hit them hardest now. Fuel cells at critical, oxygen scrubbers offline in sectors 2 and 4. The Council's low-threat assessment mocked him from the logs. Fatal error indeed, starting with the idiot who greenlit this survey run. But blame wouldn't cut them free. He spotted it then. The beast's underbelly scarred from their earlier barrage, venting plasma in weak spurts. A vulnerability if they could exploit it. Reverse thrust on the grapnel point, Elias ordered, voice steady despite the chaos. Use the tension against it. Lena, can you rig a pulse from the cargo bay EMPs? Overload 1, direct it through the hull breach. Static hissed, then Lena's reply. Risky. Could fry our own systems. But yeah, I can jury-rig it. Give me 90 seconds. Her tone held no argument, just the quiet resolve that had kept them alive through asteroid storms and rogue comets. Elias nodded to himself, trusting her caution to temper his gamble. Kai executed the maneuver, the ship bucking as retros ignited in opposition to the pull. Metal screamed. The grapnel line taut like a bowstring. The beast faltered, its massive bulk swinging wide, exposing that wounded underbelly. Elias watched the scopes, timing it. Now Kai, full burn. Engines roared, propelling them forward into the strain. The line snapped with a thunderous crack, hurling the beast off course into a tumbling spin. Lena's voice cut through. Pulse away. A brilliant flash erupted from the hull, invisible to the naked eye but registering as a seismic spike on sensors. The creature convulsed, its grapnel arms spasming limp. Ethereal fluids boiling out in a silent plume. They pulled away, the ship limping on auxiliary power, but the victory tasted like ash. Scans showed the beast recovering slower now, but alive. Life support flickered, another hour, maybe 2 before the air turned toxic. Elias leaned back, exhaling. That bought us time. But we're not out yet. Kai wiped his face, grinning faintly. Human ingenuity 1. Space horror 0. What's next, Captain? Lena patched in from below. Patching the fractures. But Elias, that thing's adapting. We need a real plan, not another Hail Mary. He stared at the receding monster, its form a dark stain against the stars. The void pressed in, unyielding, demanding they force that break or perish. Elias gripped the console edge as the hull groaned. A low vibration humming through the deck like distant thunder. The beast's silhouette loomed larger on the view screen, its tendrils coiling with renewed purpose, closing the gap they'd barely clawed open. Kai, reroute everything to forward thrusters. Give me max burn, no holding back. His voice cut sharp, no room for doubt. Kai's fingers flew across the auxiliary panel, sweat beading on his brow under the flickering emergency lights. On it, Cap. But if we push her harder, those microfractures in the engineering bay could spiderweb. Lena's already welding like her life depends on it, because it does. He punched the command and the ship lurched, engines whining in protest as they surged ahead. The stars blurred into streaks, but the creature matched them effortlessly, its form pulsing with an inner glow that suggested it was feeding on the debris field around them. From the comms, Lena's voice crackled through, edged with strain. Elias, I've sealed the worst breaches, but that thing's not just chasing. It's learning our pattern. The grapnel scar on its hide? It's regenerating faster than my scans can track. If we don't improvise something now, it'll board us before we hit the nebula. Her words painted the image. Sparks flying in the dim glow of her torch, shadows dancing across patched bulkheads. Elias scanned the readouts, his mind racing through options that all ended in slim margins. The nebula ahead offered cover, dense gas clouds that could mask their signature. But entering blind meant risking collision with rogue asteroids or worse, getting tangled in the beast's domain. Options, he demanded, eyes locked on the pursuing shadow. Kai, what's our weapon status? Anything left after that last shot? Plasma cannons at 20%, torpedoes dry. But wait, Kai leaned in, pulling up a secondary schematic. The auxiliary coolant vents. We could vent superheated plasma through them, turn the exhaust into a makeshift barrier. It'll cook our outer hull, but it might blind its sensors long enough to slip into the nebula. Lena chimed in before Elias could respond. Risky. The vents are tied to life support. If they overload, we're venting Atmo too. But hell, better than becoming space sushi. Her laugh was brittle, forced, but it sparked something in the air. A shared defiance. Elias nodded, decision crystallizing. Do it, Kai, prep the vents. Lena, brace engineering for the heat bloom. We force that break now. The ship shuddered as Kai initiated the sequence, hatches hissing open along the stern. A brilliant plume erupted behind them, white-hot and searing, slamming into the beast like a solar flare. The creature recoiled, its tendrils thrashing in the inferno, bioluminescent eyes flaring in what might have been pain or rage. For a heartbeat, the view screen cleared, the monster faltering, distance widening. But alarms blared anew, hull integrity dropping, temperatures spiking in the aft sections. Elias felt the deck plate's heat beneath his boots, a reminder of the cost. "We're in," he muttered, steering toward the swirling nebula's edge. Purple and gold gases swallowed the ship, muffling sensors, but the victory felt fragile. The beast's distant roar echoing through the void like a promise unkept. Elias gripped the console, fingers white against the flickering readouts. The nebula's gases clawed at the hull, distorting every scan like fog on a mirror. "Kai, talk to me. What's our margin?" Kai wiped sweat from his brow, eyes darting between the engine diagnostics and the viewport's swirling chaos. "Engines are holding, but that flare we hit the beast with?" It cooked our aft thrusters. "We're limping, Elias. If that thing catches up, we're chum." The ship shuddered again, not from pursuit, but from the nebula's electromagnetic pulses, jagged spikes that fried auxiliary systems one by one. Lena, their xenobiologist, leaned over a secondary station, her cautious nature evident in the way she cross-checked data twice before speaking. "Sensors are blind in here, but those gases, they're not just pretty lights. They're laced with ionized particles. Could mask us or attract worse." Elias nodded, his brave resolve stealing his voice. "Then we use it. Plot a course through the densest pockets. Buy time to patch the damage." He punched in coordinates, the ship banking hard into a violet storm of vapor. The deck vibrated underfoot, lights dimming as power rerouted to shields. Kai snorted, his wit cutting through the tension like a knife. "Patch with what, duct tape and prayers? Fine, hand me the toolkit. But if we vent plasma again, we're lighting ourselves up like a flare for that squid from hell." They worked in tandem, Kai crawling into an access panel amid sparking wires, while Elias held the helm steady. Lena monitored the external feeds, her voice steady but edged with worry. "Contact faint, but it's there. The beast is probing the edges. Those tendrils, they're adapting, extending through the gas like roots." A jolt rocked the vessel, alarms wailing as a tendril snagged the port nacelle. Elias yanked the controls, evading by inches, but the drag pulled them off course. "It's got us." "Kai, now!" From the bowels of the engine room, Kai's voice crackled over comms. "On it. Rerouting auxiliary power. Hold her steady, or we're nebula fodder." He jury-rigged a bypass, sparks flying as he fused circuits with bare hands. The ship groaned, thrusters firing unevenly, and the tendril snapped free, but not without tearing a gash in the hull plating. Atmosphere hissed out, sealing fields snapping on just in time. Lena sealed the breach from her station, her hands precise despite the sweat beading on her forehead. "We're losing pressure in cargo bay too. And Elias, scans show the beast closing. It's learning our moves." Elias's jaw tightened, the weight of command pressing like the nebula's crush. Their initial plan, to lose it in the clouds, had backfired spectacularly. The creature wasn't just chasing, it was hurting them deeper, toward a thickening wall of plasma storms. One wrong turn and the ship would ionize from the inside out. "Options?" he barked, eyes locked on the viewport where shadows writhed just beyond the glow. Kai emerged from the panel, face smudged black. "We could dump the core ejecta, create a false trail, draw it off while we double back." Lena shook her head, cautious as ever. "Risky. The ejecta might ignite in this soup. Blow us all to atoms." Elias weighed it, the ship's hum a frantic underscore. Grit won out, human stubbornness against the void. "Do it, Lena. Mark the safest exit vector. Kai, make it count." As Kai initiated the dump, a plume of radioactive waste spewed into the nebula, blooming like a false beacon. The beast veered, tendrils lashing toward the glow, buying them precious minutes. Elias swung the ship around, engines straining. But the maneuver exposed their weakened side. Another pulse hit, this one cracking the view screen with a spiderweb fracture. "We're clear for now," Lena reported, her voice a mix of relief and strain. But the cost lingered. Power levels dipping, hull integrity at 60%. The nebula's heart loomed ahead, a maelstrom of raw energy that promised escape or oblivion. Kai clapped Elias on the shoulder, his grin defiant. "Told you prayers work?" Elias didn't smile. The roar echoed again, closer, a fatal promise in the dark. Elias gripped the controls tighter, the ship's alarms blaring like a siren's wail. The roar vibrated through the hull, shaking loose a panel in the ceiling that clattered to the deck. Lena, reroute auxiliary power to shields now. His voice cut sharp over the din, fingers dancing across the console to compensate for the failing stabilizers. She nodded, sweat beading on her forehead as she patched the systems. On it, but Elias, we're bleeding energy. If that thing hits us again, the core might overload. Her hands flew, diverting flows from non-essentials. Lights dimmed to a faint glow, the hum of life support dropping to a whisper. Kai braced against the bulkhead, his eyes locked on the fractured view screen where the nebula's swirling gases painted the beast's silhouette in eerie purples and blacks, a colossal shadow with tendrils uncoiling like living whips. The creature lunged, its massive form eclipsing the stars. Elias yanked the yoke, rolling the ship into a desperate barrel turn. Metal groaned under the strain, but they slipped just beyond the first strike. A tendril grazed the aft section, sending sparks flying from the engineering readouts. Direct hit on the thrusters, Kai called out, already moving toward the access hatch. I can patch it, but it'll take time we don't have. Do it, Elias snapped, eyes narrowing as he plotted a course straight into the nebula's densest fog. The plan was suicide. Hide in the energy storms where sensors went blind, but it beat waiting for the beast to tear them apart. Lena's console flickered, warning of incoming gravitational pulls. It's adapting, she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Those pulses aren't random anymore. It's learning our moves. Kai dropped into the maintenance crawlspace, toolkit clanging against his belt. The air grew thick with the smell of scorched wiring, and he wedged himself beside the damaged array. Learning? Great. So it's got a brain the size of a planet. Elias, keep her steady. I'm splicing the backups. His words muffled through the grate, but the determination rang clear. Elias acknowledged with a grunt, weaving the ship through a cluster of ionized clouds that lit up like fireworks on impact. The beast's roar swelled closer than before, as if mocking their evasion. Elias felt the deck tilt violently, a microburst from the nebula yanking them off course. Alarms screamed overload. The view screen cracked further, a shard embedding in the arm of Lena's chair. She winced but didn't flinch, sealing a hull breach with a quick command. Power at 30%. We push deeper or we die out here. Deeper it was. Elias punched the throttles, the ship surging into the maelstrom's embrace. Gases howled past, buffeting them like a gale, and visibility dropped to zero. The beast's form vanished into the haze, but its presence lingered in the probing pulses that rattled their bones. Kai emerged from the hatch, face smeared with grease, a triumphant spark in his eye. Thrusters holding for now, but if we don't lose this thing soon, we're scrap. Lena scanned the readouts, her caution yielding to a spark of grit. There's a stable pocket ahead, a lull in the storms. If we can reach it, maybe we force it to follow and trap it in the energy flux. Elias met her gaze, the weight of command pressing down. It was a gamble, turning the nebula's fury against their pursuer, but humans didn't survive by playing safe. He nodded, adjusting course. The ship plunged forward, the roar fading just a touch behind them. Yet as they hurtled toward the pocket, a new tremor shook the frame. Not the beast, but the nebula itself, coiling tighter like a noose. Elias's hands steadied on the controls. They were in it now, no turning back. Elias gripped the controls tighter as the nebula's tendrils lashed out, violet arcs snapping like whips against the hull. The stable pocket loomed ahead on the scanners, a fleeting calm amid the chaos, a bubble where the plasma storms thinned just enough to breathe. But the readings flickered unreliable, and the beast's signature pulsed closer, its gravitational wake tugging at their engines like an insistent hand. Flux density rising, Lena reported, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. She punched in overrides, rerouting power from non-essentials to the shields. Lights dimmed in the cabin, casting her face in harsh shadows. If we hit that pocket wrong, it'll shred us before the thing even gets a bite. Elias didn't look up. Then we hit it right. Kai, status on the decoy flares? From the engineering alcove, Kai grunted, his wiry frame hunched over a sparking console. Grease streaked his arms, and his usual wit had sharpened into focus. Armed and hot, but their short range won't buy us more than a minute if this nebula fries the signals. The ship bucked as another surge hit, alarms blaring in staccato bursts. Elias banked hard, stars blurring through the viewport. The beast's roar vibrated through the deck plates, a low thunder that made his teeth ache. It was adapting, matching their velocity with eerie precision, no longer the mindless predator the council logs had dismissed as a low-threat anomaly. Launching now, Kai said, slamming the release. Twin flares erupted from the aft vents, streaking into the nebula like fireflies in a gale. They ignited on cue, blooming into false heat signatures that mimicked the ship's core output. For a heartbeat, the beast veered, its massive form, a swirling mass of dark matter and jagged spines, lunging toward the decoys. Lena exhaled sharply. It's taking the bait. Pocket in 30 seconds, but triumph soured fast. The nebula constricted, energy walls closing in like a vice. One flare sputtered out prematurely, consumed by a plasma spike, and the beast corrected course with a savage twist. Its spines extended, probing the void, latching onto the ship's trailing exhaust. "Contact!" Elias shouted, feeling the drag yank them sideways. The vessel groaned, structural integrity warnings flashing red. He fired lateral thrusters, fighting the pull, but the beast clung, siphoning momentum with relentless hunger. Kai scrambled to his feet, tools clattering. "Auxiliary power to the mains. Give me everything you've got, Lena." She nodded, fingers flying across the panel, diverting. "But the flux is destabilizing the pocket. We're flying blind here." The viewport filled with the beast's underbelly, a maw of churning void that swallowed light whole. Elias's mind raced. Standard evasive maneuvers were useless against something that bent physics like putty. Humans had colonized stars by thinking sideways, not straight. "Kai, can we reverse the flare emitters? Turn them into a feedback loop? Overload its sensors?" Kai paused, eyes widening. "Crazy, but yeah, rig the vents to pulse our actual signature back at it amplified. Might scramble its hunt long enough to break free." "Do it," Elias ordered, yanking the ship into a desperate spiral. The beast tightened its grip, hull plates buckling under the strain. A sharp crack echoed from below decks, and Lena winced. Another conduit fried, life support flickering. As Kai jury-rigged the system, sparks flying from his welds, the pocket engulfed them. Storms raged outside the bubble, but inside a deceptive stillness reigned, the air thick with ionized haze. The beast thrashed, confused by the proximity, its roars muffled to a guttural hum. "Loop active," Kai yelled. The emitters reversed with a whine, blasting a concentrated burst of replicated signals directly into the creature's mass. It recoiled, spines retracting in disarray, the gravitational hold snapping like a cut tether. Elias punched the engines, propelling them through the pocket's heart. Alarms quieted, the beast's signature fading amid the nebula's interference. But as they cleared the edge, a final tremor rocked the ship, secondary damage from the strain sealing offline in the lower bays. Lena scanned the logs, her caution resurfacing. "We're clear, but we've got hull breaches. That thing's still out there learning." Elias leaned back, pulse pounding. The Council's low threat assessment echoed hollowly now, their autopsy of this mission already writing itself in the scars on the hull. They pressed on, the stars ahead a fragile promise. Elias gripped the console, his knuckles whitening as the ship's stabilizers groaned against the uneven thrust. The nebula's glow had faded to a distant haze, but the damage reports scrolling across Lena's screen painted a grim picture. Secondary seals compromised, life support flickering in the lower decks. He glanced at her, her face illuminated by the blue flicker of diagnostics, eyes narrowed in that familiar cautious focus. "We can't push her harder without risking a full cascade failure," Lena said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. She tapped a sequence into the panel, rerouting power from non-essentials. The hum of the engines deepened, a reluctant concession. "Oxygen reserves are holding at 70%, but if we hit another anomaly..." Elias nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. The creature's shadow lingered in his mind, not just a mindless predator but something adaptive, probing their defenses like a strategist in the void. The Council's briefing had called it a relic, a gravitational anomaly with bioluminescent flares. Low threat, they said, perfect for a routine survey. Now, with hull scars like claw marks, it felt like baiting a trap. He unstrapped and stood, the deck plates vibrating underfoot. "I'll suit up and check the bays manually. Patch me through if that thing pings again." His tone carried the brave edge he always leaned on, masking the knot in his gut. Lena's hand shot out, grabbing his arm. Cautious Lena, always the anchor. "You're not going down there alone. The breaches could vent you into space before you seal them." She rose too, her movements precise, already pulling her own harness from the locker. No argument, just action. That was their rhythm, forged in a dozen runs like this. Together they descended the access shaft, the air growing cooler and thinner with each level. Emergency lights cast long shadows, turning familiar corridors into a labyrinth of red warnings. Elias led, toolkit slung over his shoulder, his breath fogging the visor as he cycled the lower bay door. A hiss of escaping atmosphere greeted them, and he braced against the frame, peering into the dim expanse. The bay was a mess, crates overturned, conduits sparking like dying stars. A jagged tear in the outer hull gaped toward the blackness, stars wheeling lazily beyond. No immediate rush of vacuum thanks to the failing seals, but the pull was there, insistent. Lena knelt by a console, her fingers flying over exposed wiring. Stabilizers are fried. If we improvise a patch with the spare plating, it might hold until we reach the relay station. Elias crouched beside a ruptured panel, the metallic tang of ozone sharp in his suit. He pried it open, revealing a nest of frayed cables pulsing with residual energy. The creature's influence, its gravitational tug, had warped the internals, turning solid tech into a brittle web. Council missed this. They autopsy threats from afar, never feel the shake. A low rumble echoed through the ship, not from engines, but something external. Lena's comm crackled. Proximity alert. It's back, closing fast, signature stronger. It's adapting to our evasion pattern. Elias's heart hammered. He yanked a cable free, sparks dancing across his gloves, and jury-rigged a bypass drawing from the auxiliary battery. No time for finesse. Human grit meant making do, turning scrap into salvation. Get the plating in position. I'll hotwire the doors to seal once we're clear. They worked in tandem, Lena welding the makeshift barrier while he coaxed life into the failing systems. The rumble grew to a thunder, the ship bucking as the creature's field brushed them again. Alarms wailed, but Elias ignored them, his witty spark surfacing in a grim mutter. Come on, you oversized jellyfish. We've got better things to do than dance. The patch took, seals hissed shut, pressure stabilizing with a satisfying pop. But as they scrambled back to the bridge, a sharper jolt hit, flinging Elias against the wall. Pain flared in his shoulder, but he pushed up, grabbing Lena's hand to steady her. Scans showed the creature latching on, its mass distorting the hull like a vice. On the bridge, Elias slammed into his seat, engines roaring to life under his command. Full burn, evasive spiral. The ship twisted, tearing free with a metallic screech that echoed through the frame. Lena monitored the strain, her voice terse. It's pursuing, but we've bought distance. Relay station in range, distress beacon away. They watched the signature dwindle, the creature balking at the nebula's edge, perhaps wary of the human signal now broadcasting their position. Elias flexed his bruised shoulder, the cost settling in. One less reliable bay, a limp in the ship's gate. But they were alive, pressing toward allies, the Council's error etched in every scar. The stars ahead sharpened, a defiant cluster unbroken. Elias gripped the armrests as the ship's comms crackled to life, the relay station's automated voice cutting through the hum of strained engines. Distress signal received. Fleet coordinates locked. ETA 47 minutes. Hold pattern initiated. Lena leaned forward, her fingers dancing over the auxiliary console, cross-referencing the incoming data with their battered nav charts. The nebula's glow painted her face in shifting purples, highlighting the tight line of her jaw. That's no standard patrol route. It's a full squadron, 3 cruisers, support drones. But look at the signatures. They're rerouting from the outer rim. Whatever hit us, it stirred up more than echoes. The creature's last lunge replayed in Elias's mind, its tendrils coiling like living cables, prying at the hull's seams. He shook it off, focusing on the readouts. Power reserves at 60%. Structural integrity holding at 82. They'd make it, but not without scars. Keep eyes on that tail. If it's following, we need to know before it blindsides the fleet. A low rumble vibrated through the deck plating, not from pursuit, but from within, the auxiliary bay groaning under the improvised patches Lena had welded during their spiral escape. Sparks flickered from a loose conduit, and she was on it in seconds, toolkit in hand, sealing the breach with a hiss of plasma torch. Patched. But we're leaking atmo and cargo too. Not critical yet, but it'll bite us if we push hard. Elias nodded, his voice steady despite the ache in his shoulder. We won't. Steady course. Let the fleet come to us. He patched into the open channel, broadcasting their status in clipped bursts. This is the Vanguard independent hauler. Hostile contact in Nebula Sector 7. Entity unknown, biomechanical aggressive. Request immediate escort and bioscan protocols. Static hissed back. Then a human voice, warm with the rough edge of long-haul spacers.
Vanguard, this is Captain Reyes of the Vanguard.
We read you. Drones launching now. Sit tight. We've got your 6. Relief edged into Lena's eyes, but she didn't let it soften her focus. She pulled up the external cams, zooming on the nebula's roiling edge. Nothing moved there, no shadow uncoiling. Yet the void felt heavier, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Minutes stretched, the ship's systems humming in uneasy rhythm. Elias ran diagnostics on the engines, rerouting power from non-essentials to buy margin. The creature had left its mark, not just dense but something insidious like residue clogging the intakes. Filters were degrading faster than projected. Lena, we might need to vent the forward thrusters on approach. Clear the gunk without losing velocity. She glanced up, wiping sweat from her brow. Risky. Could throw us off axis. But yeah, better than seizing mid-dock. Her hands moved with practiced grit, prepping the sequence. No complaints, no second-guessing. Just the quiet resolve that had kept them flying through a dozen bad runs before this. The first drone appeared on sensors, a sleek arrowhead cutting through the black, its lights piercing the distance. Then another, flanking them like watchful hounds. Reyes's voice returned. Drones in position, scanning for anomalies. Vanguard, your hull's lighting up like a Christmas tree, looks like bioadhesive residue. We'll have decon teams ready on arrival. Elias exhaled, the tension in his chest easing a fraction. Copy that. What's the council's line on this thing? A pause, then Reyes's tone hardened. Low threat assessment, they said. Routine survey gone sideways. But after your beacon, every ship's on alert. If it's out there, we'll burn it. Lena muttered under her breath, sealing the last panel. Low threat. Tell that to the bay we lost. She straightened, meeting Elias's gaze. The shared look said it all. No more blind trust in desk jockey reports. They'd charted their own course before, and this run wouldn't change that. The drones closed in, their formation a shield against the nebula's fringe. Sensors pinged clean, no pursuit, no lurking mass. But as the fleet's lead cruiser materialized on the horizon, a faint tremor rippled through the Vanguard's frame, deeper than before. Not the engines. Something else, probing from afar. Contact, Lena snapped, her console flaring with a new alert. Weak signal, but it's matching the entity's signature. Not closing yet. Elias's hands tightened on the controls. The stars ahead held steady, but the cost of survival pressed closer, a shadow refusing to fade. Elias gripped the armrests as the Vanguard shuddered again, the intruding signal coiling through the hull like invisible roots seeking purchase. Lena's fingers flew across her panel, rerouting power to the countermeasures grid. It's adapting, she said, voice tight. Our last jam only bought us minutes. If it sinks fully, it'll hijack the core. From the engineering bay, Kai's voice crackled over the comms, laced with the grit of a man who'd jury-rigged miracles from scrap before. I've got a workaround. Old-school EMP burst tuned to its frequency. But it'll fry half our systems. Nav shields the works. We go dark or we go dead. Elias glanced at the forward display, where the lead cruiser loomed larger now, its silhouette cutting through the nebula's glow like a predator scenting blood. The entity's probe wasn't just scanning. It was learning, mirroring their evasion patterns from the Bay incident. Trust the Council's low-threat assessment? That folly had already cost them dearly, left Kai limping from shrapnel and turned Lena's optimism into steel resolve. No more. Do it, Elias ordered, his tone brooking no debate. Full commitment. Lena, prep the decoy drones. Make it think we're scattering. Kai's acknowledgement hummed through the deck plates, followed by a whine building in the depths of the ship. Lena punched in the commands, her eyes flicking to Elias with a nod that carried the weight of their unspoken pact. They'd flown together since the academy runs, patching leaks in hulls and egos alike. And this, facing down a relic intelligence that the Council had dismissed as residual noise, tested every ounce of that bond. The EMP detonated in a silent fury, the Vanguard's frame vibrating as the pulse rippled outward. Alarms wailed briefly before cutting to static, lights dimming to emergency red. On the view screen, the entity's signal flickered, then stuttered, like a flame caught in a gust before fracturing into harmless echoes. The lead cruiser veered sharply, its formation breaking as confusion rippled through the fleet. But victory came laced with bite. Secondary systems sputtered back online unevenly. The nav computer spat errors, forcing Elias to plot their escape on manual charts, stars blurring into a manual mosaic. Kai emerged from the bay, face smeared with coolant, a makeshift brace on his leg. We bought time, he grunted, slumping into a jump seat. But the drive's limping. We'll make the relay point, but not in style. Lena scanned the readouts, her caution yielding to a wry smile. Entities' signatures dissipating. Council's error logs will make for interesting reading, if we file them. She paused, the tremor in her hands betraying the toll. The empty station reminded them that survival's price was etched in absences. As the Vanguard limped toward the nebula's edge, the stars reclaiming their steady vigil, Elias steered with deliberate pulls on the yoke. The shadow receded, but its lesson lingered. Ingenuity wasn't just tools and tactics. It was the refusal to let oversight claim them whole. They pressed on unbroken.